Hello everyone, welcome to another video here, and in this video we'll be talking about the installation of the USB Type-C. Alright, so now I have a computer here, and when you look at this computer here, we can see that it actually has an old type of, or maybe we can say a cheaper version of a motherboard. And this motherboard here does not actually support USB Type-C here. So we can see here that we only have Type A type of USB support, and from here we can see here we only have Type A USB support here. Actually, problem can be actually sorted out by the installation of this simple component here. Alright, so now before I actually do the installation, I'm gonna go through the introduction of this component here. Alright, so I bought this component in China here. It's actually one of a Chinese brand, and when you look at the packaging here, it has a very simple packaging. So we can see here that this is actually the box, and in the box it has actually three types of things. So the first one, it has these papers here, and this is actually the QC, which is the quality control, and we also have actually the warranty card here. So we also have another component here. Alright, so now from the component we can actually see that it has two ports, two USB Type-C ports here, and it has two because actually this is actually the cheaper version of this type of component here. If you want extra ports, you actually have to pay a bit more money for it. And we can also see that it also has another special thing here. Now it has this kind of input here, which is actually a SATA cable type of support. Now we can actually find this type of input on an HDD or maybe an SSD support here. So you find that those kinds of inputs are actually the cable that actually goes through the HDD or maybe the SSD is actually the same cable that we can actually use on this component here. Alright, now before you actually start the installation of this component here, you really have to make sure that you shut down your computer. So there are many ways that you can actually shut down. So I can shut down my computer from here, and after you actually shut down your computer here, you really have to make sure that you actually unplug this power cable out here. You really have to, or maybe you can just plug it off, or maybe turn it off from the main switch. The next one is that depending on how you open up your computer, you can actually open up your computer, and my computer just actually depends on unscrewing this screws out here, which are actually accompanied by a screwdriver here. Alright, so now after you actually successfully open the computer here, the first thing that we're gonna do is that we have to actually identify the type of cable that we're gonna use for this component. Now when you look at this component here, it has a SATA type of cable, just like we talked about. This is the cable here, and this actually cable here actually is also supported by this SSD here. We can see this is the cable here. So the next thing that we're gonna do is that we can actually plug in this cable here. So we plug it here into this, we plug it into this hole here. Alright, so now after plugging in this cable here, you can actually install this, you can actually install this on one of the outlets here. Alright, and we have our cable plugged in here, and we also have it installed here. Then we can use our screws here, and we can actually screw it up here. You can see here, so we can have one of the screws here, which is this screw here. You can actually screw it up if you actually have a screwdriver here. So the next thing we can do is actually we can plug in our cable here, and we can turn on our computer. Alright, so it seems so far so good, everything is working good. Alright, so we can see here that the computer is on. Alright, so now the next thing that we're gonna try is that I have this is my hard drive here, and this actually hard drive here supports USB Type-C. So we can see that actually we have a light here, meaning that we have some fault. All right, so when you look at the components here, so we can conclude that this component here actually does not have a support for actually data transfer. So it's just like, it seems this type of component actually is just for power output. So basically, if you wanna have something that actually has a data transfer form, we also need this type of cable here. So when you look at this SSD here, it has two cables. So the first one is that it has this SATA cable, which is actually the power, which is actually comes from the power supply here. And we also have this another cable here, which is actually from the motherboard here to this SSD here, meaning that this one actually is the one that actually transmits information from this SSD to that motherboard there. So in this case, it seems that this type of actually SSD here is actually for power support only. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna try is that I'll try and plug in my phone here. All right, so let me see if it's gonna charge. All right, so here we can see we have actually a charge here. We are getting a response of a charge here. All right, now the last part here, one would actually ask, why do you actually would need a USB Type-C? Actually, the first thing that you'd actually consider is that you would need it for actually a very faster data transfer. So if you want to have a component that actually supports a very high data transfer, you actually have to consider going up with USB Type-C. And in my case here, it only supports a power supply, but actually you can get one which actually also has a data transfer plus a power supply, which actually you really have to actually pay a bit more of money there. Apart from the data transfer, we can actually looking at most of the components that are actually coming out recently, they actually support a USB Type-C, or we can say that they require, they have fast charging and all those kinds of things. And if you want to achieve this type of fast charging, you can actually consider having a Type-C